Welcome to the Enchanted Earth Podcast, where you will hear stories of nature with the power to transform our lives. These sacred stories are begging to be shared now. So listen in as my guest today shares one of their own. Hi, welcome. Today we have Lisa Kahn, and let me just share a little bit about her. Lisa is the visionary behind Finding Sanctuary, the multidisciplinary design firm at the heart of the revolution of well-being in interior design. Her work is synonymous with sanctuary, epitomizing luxury, tranquility, and intentional living. Lisa leads her design team and lives with her husband and two English Springer Spaniels in Naples, Florida. So, welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. What an honor.
About 2 years ago, I asked you if you would have a story to share from my book, and you shared an awesome experience. And before we get into that, I just want to share that I've spoken to many people in interviewing for this book about sacred experiences in nature. I kind of call it like our nature stories. And I think these experiences often show up in times in our life when we're at a real low ebb or a dark place. And I have some ideas about why that is. So I would kind of like you to give us a little framework or setup for the experience that you're going to share with us today.
Oh, I appreciate that, Maureen. So I would say about 15 years ago, I was at that point that you just described so aptly. I was having that personal dark night of the soul. Everything was coming together in a way that made me feel extremely unhappy, very stressed, a lot of anxiety. And it ranged everything from my bookkeeper quitting in my business to a client firing me from a project to then my daughter at the time, who was 10, she started having seizures. And my daughter is on the autism spectrum, and we have had other developmental and intellectual delays and challenges with her, but the seizures were new at that point, and I was also in the process of divorcing her father. So there were just all of these things that came together. I know it's a lot, right? So as I was really experiencing all of that, I fell into a trap that I think many of us fall into, and that is of just feeling very hard done by, honestly. I think it's easy to feel like a victim of your life when there are so many things that are just making it hard. And so at that time, I would get up really early and I used to walk around the lake behind my house. I love getting up before the sun rises. There's something just absolutely awesome about being reminded of your place in the cosmos, of looking at all those planets and stars, and finally you just feel so small. And your own experience is little, it's just not as all consuming as it feels most days. And so as I was walking my dogs around the lake behind my house that morning, I was really talking out loud, honestly. There was no one else around, and my Springer Spaniels don't usually answer me back. So I was walking along and I was just saying, please show me a sign. I just need a break. Something has to give because otherwise something big is going to break. My health, just something is really going to give in if I do not find some sort of a sign or an answer or a way out. I need a way out of where I am right now. And I added the caveat that the sign needed to be really blatant because I was really not at my best thinking right then. Don't be subtle with the sign. Like, I need a big sign, an obvious sign. And so as I was walking around, I happened to look down the lake and, it was that beautiful moment before the sun comes up. So the trees in the distance are all black and just that rosy glow starting above the trees. And as I looked down the lake, I paused for a moment and the wind picked up and it blew a breeze all the way down the lake. I had long hair then, lifted the ends of my hair. And as it did that, I was just awash in goosebumps, just head to toe goosebumps. And at that very moment, on the wind, I heard the word sanctuary. It just was whispered right into my ear, almost as if from God's lips to my ears. And I just clung to that word for a moment. And I thought, gosh, that's what that I want sanctuary. My family needs sanctuary. We all need to feel better. And so I walked my dog home and I made a cup of coffee and I sat down and opened my journal and I started to really write about what this could mean. What a funny way for this word to arrive, but what a welcome sign. This was the sign. It was very clear to me and, thank goodness it was very obvious. And so as I sat down and really started to unpack what this word could mean to me, I realized that if I could create a sanctuary for my daughter Chloe, that it could give her a safe place to be, a place where when she had a seizure, we could have a soft landing pad for her, a place where she couldn't fall very far. And I started thinking through as a designer, how could I put that together in a way that she could really be safe in a room, emotionally safe, physically safe, mentally safe, and really create this sanctuary environment for her that would have everything that she needs? And as I considered it further, I thought about all of her senses, not just what she would be seeing, what she would be smelling. And so I added aromatherapy and what she would be feeling against her skin. And so I added soft carpets and soft textiles and I really what would she be hearing? And so I added some speakers in there so she could have really soft, relaxing music. And then I added additional tools that would help her really regulate her own emotions and all the things that would give her the tools that she needs to be able to get back to her better self. Because one of the things that happens frequently with seizures is also a mood disorder, and we were really seeing a lot of frustration and anger out of her because she was tired, because she was taking, things to calm the seizures down, and all of these are disinhibitors, they really can exacerbate difficult behavior. And so what I found is that when I created this space for her and I showed her how to use it, that our entire family unit just calmed down. Like, all of a sudden, the Chloe that would come out of the room and be with the rest of us was the calmer, gentler version, and it really changed the way that we were all interacting. Our happiness quotient just instantly raised. And so I thought, gosh, if it's that good for her, honestly, I would love a sanctuary because it's not easy being her mom. My son could use one for being her brother. My husband could use one. And so I just really went around to all of us and I created within the macro sanctuary of our whole house, I created little micro sanctuaries for each person. And it just changed everything. And at that time, I went to see a business coach and I was talking to her about this word and what had happened, and she said, "Lisa, this is absolutely magical." She said, "This is the work you're doing in the world. You're already doing it. You were just lacking the vocabulary to talk about it properly." And so she put me in touch with a communications and writing coach, and I started writing and learning how to give some of these loftier, more esoteric almost subjects legs. Like, how do you get that back on the ground, and how do you turn this into something that people can use for themselves, something that my design clients can understand, that I can help deliver to them, and what kind of benefits it will bring. And at that time, I decided I think the best way to live this is to actually turn our house and our studio into a lab. We try all kinds of things because I want to know what works. And so I have this body of research and firsthand, I mean, you could really call this is a mystical experience for me. I really have been one-on-one with this, for this last 15 years. And I have a really good grasp on what does and doesn't work to create these spaces that support our well-being.
Yeah. Wow. It is really an enchanted, mystical, magical story. But I'm going to ask you another question. But first, I mean, this type of design is so important, especially now. And I'm sure you had a lot of people come to you since COVID because so many people going from one thing to the next, and then it's like home. And then, but then all of a sudden, when we were stuck there, it was like, oh, I have to live here 24/7. So you must have seen like an explosion in interest.
Boy, did I. We had so many inquiries, Maureen, that I was like, we need to really do something right now. And so, with the beginning of COVID, I created a journal that we published ourselves and sent out. I put these packages together, like 150 packages, and I sent them out to friends, colleagues, family, loved ones. And we designed our own line of candles, another tool of sanctuary, contemplative practices, things that calm us down, things that help us activate the spaces around us, kind of bring the energy frequency back up is always what we're after. And I started writing our blog every week. And actually, I even started my own 501c called the Finding Sanctuary Institute. And so that is something that my husband and I are really starting to dig our teeth into. And we have every intention of having both an in person and online library where we can bring together all of these teachings, everything from as long ago as Plato up to right now, some of the advances in neuroscience and neuroaesthetics and the different things that are happening with biophilia and other things. There's not a place to go to find all of that, whether you're a design professional, an architect, a builder, even a homeowner looking for some information for themselves. So we're going to put that together and offer some educational opportunities as part of that as well. So I have some big plans for the future.
Wow, Lisa, yeah, you definitely don't let grass grow under your feet. That's a that's a phrase my mom would always use for me.
I love it.
So, just back to this experience on the lake. One of the things that struck me as I was reading through the story that I wrote up for the book was you caught something out of the corner of your eye and then you turned and you saw the sunrise coming up. And something that really struck me was, well, first of all, your intention and your clear statement to the universe. I need support. Give me a sign. What do I do? But also make it as clear as possible, which is great because we often forget to say that. And then it's this cryptic message that we're trying to put puzzle pieces together, which I'm very famous for getting involved in. But the fact that you something caught your eye out of the corner of your eye, it was like that, I think, is a very key part to this experience that you had. Because I find that one of the things that keeps us from having these divinely inspired sacred experiences is we're just kind of in a bubble and we're not open and we're not even noticing. We're
Aware.
not aware. We're not observant of what's going on in the natural world. And just being open to look like, oh, what was that? And oh my gosh, and to experience that majesty of the sunrise and then the wind coming. And I tell you, when you said you had chills all over your body, when you told that story, I had chills. And I have them right now. And I'm only starting to realize the significance and the importance of sharing our stories. I have had this idea for 15 years to write this book. I wrote it
Yeah.
in probably 6 months, pretty much. I just submitted the manuscript, and here I am now going, we can actually get the benefit of feeling what the other person experienced.
Absolutely. It's so powerful.
And that is so important because your body doesn't know the difference between you experiencing it or you experiencing it through another. Your body doesn't know. And our heart opens. And that is one, I think, one reason why, and I know many have said this when we're at that dark night of the soul, we're broken down and we have no
Yeah.
other option but to open our heart.
No.
And that's when these magical experiences can come through.
Yeah, they really do.
Now, when we have an amazing experience like this, and like you told me, it's kind of like you're having that understanding, you're moving forward immediately with your home environment with your daughter, you get that set up, then you start working on family members, then you start working with clients. And this story is like this majestic mountain. But I know from our discussion that it wasn't like a full ascent there. We kind of
No.
forget. We do forget our most important life nudges and messages. And we have to
Mhm.
remember.
We do.
And I know you shared with me that you kind of went off on a retreat with your, I think, business coach, right?
I did. I did, and, I really when I had shared the whole concept of sanctuary with her and she was so supportive and so like, "You must do this," she also really admonished me that this is not something to just talk about. This is a life choice. This is a philosophical rewiring of your life that you're talking about here, and as I considered that, I was very excited, and, I came home from being with her, and I was like, "I'm gonna do this." I mean, live a sanctuary life? Yes, please sign me up. I'm gonna write in my journal every day, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna do all of these things, but, what's funny is that when the plane touched down in Fort Myers for me to come back home, the hospital was calling, my daughter had been admitted, my ex-husband was going off the rails, my staff was calling me, people were crying, my life was waiting for me. Right? All of those things, just because I had gone off and gotten inspired and said, "Yes, let's do this," everything was still here. And so what happens, it is not just a complete ascent up a mountain and a beautiful journey. You have to come back and deal with the soup. And I had to come back and really process all of those things and work through them. And it's funny because it took me quite a while, honestly. And a further, that same coach recommended a book to me as I was, sharing some of my struggles with her one day. And it's called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And it is a very small little book. I think it should be required reading to be an adult in the world today. And it basically covers the basics of Stoic philosophy. And I always thought Stoicism was kind of keeping a stiff upper lip, but not at all. It really is all about understanding that each challenge that meets us is a possibility and an opportunity for transformation. And so, what does that look like? And as I read through this little book, I just had this complete epiphany and I was like, oh my gosh, these things that have been so challenging to me are not here to try to run me over. These things are here to help me get a leg up and become a new version of myself, a better version of myself. And what does that look like? And in that moment, I stopped feeling like a victim of my life and I really looked at it with new glasses. And once I did that, it was a lot easier to work with the contemplative practices that I had put in place as part of my daily sanctuary practice to really use them and truly transform my life in a way that was lasting, that was meaningful, and that was something that I could really share with other people. And I think, therein really lies the second half of it. It's one thing to get that great message, but it's quite another thing to actually then really digest it and really become it and really change, all of the facets of your life to really reflect this new understanding.
So well said. Yes. I think back at one of my dark nights of the soul, and there was a phrase that carried me through. Well, it wasn't whispered to me over a lake, but I kept reading it over and over again. It is a phrase by Wayne Dyer that says essentially what you just said. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change.
Such a beautiful statement. Oh, that's perfect.
I had had to hear it maybe 50 times before I
Mm,
really understood what it was saying. And
yeah.
it is definitely one of those golden pieces of wisdom that I hold
Mhm.
on to and I share whenever I can. So
Yes.
Lisa, How is your daughter doing?
Oh, you're sweet to ask. She is thriving. She's 25, which I can hardly even believe it. She has come so far. I just can't even tell you, and I so appreciate how open Chloe is. There are so many kids who would not necessarily be open to their mom's suggestions and things the way she has been, open to things like aromatherapy, different types of music. She loves to have crystals in her room. She loves all the things. And it really has made such a difference for her. And she's even developed her own little kind of sanctuary on the go kit. And so when she travels, she has little things that she takes with her. And she's graduating from a program at our local technical college tomorrow. So she's really an adult. And I just love knowing that she's going to take this truth and understanding that we have discovered together, basically, she and she's going to take that with her wherever she goes in the world. It's beautiful.
Oh, that is so, so fabulous. And I just feel it's so divinely inspired that she's graduating tomorrow. But I understand someone else is graduating later this week. So for
Indeed.
those of you who are watching, we were both Lisa and I were both attracted to eco psychology and had taken
Mhm.
some courses, but Lisa went like all the
Yeah.
way. And she is graduating now. Are you masters or okay,
Yes. Yes.
on your way to
I am.
PhD?
Well, that is something that one of my instructors recently asked me. And, I am not closed to this idea. It's just really nice to have a little bit of a break. It's been an intense 5 years, but I have absolutely cherished getting my master's degree. The classes I have taken, the books I have read, the teachers and colleagues I have met, the connections, just all of it, it has opened my mind in the most beautiful of ways. And I feel as if there's an opportunity to bridge this wonderful understanding that is present in the world of academia and these important conversations that are happening and bring that over to the design industry and honestly even just mainstream America. Like we need to get some of that over here because I think it's kind of the antidote to some of the things that we're dealing with, as human beings on the planet today. I mean, they're asking the hard questions. They're talking about what's happening with our planet, with our social systems, with just the evolution of our very consciousness. And, there's just so many things that happen that I think are a distraction to us that this gets us back to some of those very like ground questions that we all need to be thinking about and talking about, kind of that very basic nature of who we are and what we're doing here.
Yes, yes. And I think so much of what's come out of eco psychology is fabulous. The therapies. So
True.
we have nature therapy, forest bathing therapy, and then just connecting to nature in so many different ways in interiors, biophilic design. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
the work that I'm doing with this book and this podcast, I feel is part of all of that. I feel like I'm just realizing now, I feel like it is almost an ecotherapy and it
Yeah.
helps other people connect in with their hearts. And that's, I think that is an important aspect of starting to shift behavior is not working so much from the head, but being in the heart.
Absolutely. It's such important work that you're doing, Maureen. I'm just so honored to be a part of this today. And I'm so excited for your book to come out. And I'm so excited for you to continue to share. I'm just really grateful that there are people like you in the world doing the work you're
Oh,
doing.
and I am grateful for you too. Do you have any last words?
Well, I have to tell you from your biophilic background and some of the other things and the whole eco psychology point of view, when I sit and write every morning, I try to open my house because I always want to get some fresh air in there. I want to kind of sweep out the old energy and get new things in. And as I was sitting there and I looked to my front door and the sunshine was out there, and as it was shining on the front door, I noticed the light. All of a sudden, the energy of the light was bouncing into my house. I have a million houseplants, okay? And I do mean a million. And it was literally coming in and it was jumping from plant to plant. And each one was kind of like, ah, and it jumping. And it went right out the back of my house all the way through. And I thought, that is the magic of bringing the outside world inside. That is the magic of blurring the lines between in and out, because you're talking about blurring the lines between what's in and out with your heart and with your mind. And when we do that in our spaces, it supports that activity. And it's such a beautiful understanding. I just saw it as clear as day. And I was like, well, there you go. That's how it works. I just witnessed it firsthand.
You witnessed magic. Oh, it's always such a pleasure to talk with you, Lisa. I so appreciate your time. I so appreciate your amazing work. And I look forward to hearing more about this institute. I think it's going to be really fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
All
Maureen.
right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of the Enchanted Earth podcast. Comment below, share, and most of all, please hit the subscribe button so that you'll hear when we publish another inspiring episode. You can visit us at luminous-spaces.com for more information on our online courses, retreats, and offerings. Thank you and have a magical day.